Welcome to AZ-802, Practice Exam, Deploy and Manage Active Directory Domain Services Deep Dive, Set 3. This focused session includes 45 original questions on domain controllers, read-only domain controllers, FSMO roles, trusts, sites, replication, users and groups, service accounts, group policy, and group policy preferences. I will read each ADDS scenario and the answer choices. After the choices, you will hear "Lock in your answer." Then the video pauses for a silent 3-second countdown. Pause the video if you need more time. After the countdown, I will reveal the correct answer, explain the deciding constraint, and share one exam clue you can transfer to another scenario. Question 1 of 45. You install the ADDS role on a member server that runs Windows Server 2022. After the installation completes, you restart the server. You need the server to function as an additional writable domain controller in the existing corp.contoso.com domain. What should you do next? Option A. Run the Active Directory Domain Services Configuration Wizard or install ADDS Domain Controller and supply domain credentials. Option B. Reinstall the ADDS role and select the domain controller option during role installation. Option C. Use dcpromo.exe with the /replica or new domain replica switch and existing domain credentials. Option D. Join the server to the domain again and then run the ADDS post-installation configuration script. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is A. Run the Active Directory Domain Services Configuration Wizard or install ADDS Domain Controller and supply domain credentials. Role installation only adds the binaries and management tools. The server becomes a domain controller only after you run the promotion wizard or the equivalent PowerShell commandlet and supply credentials for an existing domain. Installing the ADDS role adds binaries only. Promotion creates the directory database, configures replication, and begins domain controller service advertising. Question 2 of 45. You need to deploy the first writable domain controller for a new child domain named sales.corp.contoso.com inside the existing contoso.com forest. The forest root domain controllers are reachable, and DNS is functional. Which deployment choice and tool combination meets the requirement? Option A. Run install ads forest with the -domain type child domain parameter on a server in the parent domain. Option B. Use the add a new domain to an existing forest option in the ADDS configuration wizard and specify child domain. Option C. Promote the server as an additional domain controller in the contoso.com domain, and then create the child domain OU. Option D. Use the Add a New Forest option and supply enterprise admin credentials for the existing forest. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is B. Use the Add a New Domain to an Existing Forest option in the ADDS configuration wizard and specify child domain. A child domain is added to an existing forest by choosing the New Domain in Existing Forest path and specifying the child domain type. This keeps the new domain inside the same forest and requires appropriate forest-level credentials. A child domain uses the existing forest deployment path with child domain. Creating a forest or adding a parent domain replica produces a different directory boundary. Question 3 of 45. After promoting a new domain controller, you must confirm that the server is advertising the expected services and that inbound replication from existing domain controllers is succeeding. Which command combination provides the required evidence? Option A. For the new domain controller, run dcdig/test:/DNS and nltest/dsgetdc corp.contoso.com. Option B. For the new domain controller, query FSMO ownership with netdom and review the ADDS directory service log. Option C. For the new domain controller, run dcdig/test:/advertising and repadmin/showrepl to verify service advertising and inbound replication status. Option D, for the new domain controller, force AD-DS replication with repadmin/syncall and run gpupdate/force. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is C. For the new domain controller, run dcdiag/test:/advertising and repadmin/show_repl to verify service advertising and inbound replication status. dcdiag/test:/advertising verifies that the server advertises the expected domain controller services. repadmin/show_repl reports its inbound replication partners and latest results. Use dcdiag advertising for service registration and repadmin show_repl for inbound replication. Discovery or forced synchronization alone does not prove both conditions. Question 4 of 45. You deploy a Windows Server 2022 VM in Azure connected to the on-premises contoso.com forest via ExpressRoute private peering. You need to promote the VM as an additional writable domain controller in the existing domain. Which network configuration is required before promotion succeeds? Option A, use a dynamic private address and Azure-provided DNS on the virtual network. Option B, use a static private address and Azure-provided DNS with a host file entry for the domain. Option C, use a static public address and a public DNS resolver that hosts a contoso.com zone. Option D, use a static private address and custom VNet DNS that resolves the existing AD-DS namespace over the private connection. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is D. Use a static private address and custom VNet DNS that resolves the existing AD-DS namespace over the private connection. The VM must resolve the existing AD-DS DNS namespace over the private path. A static private IP prevents address changes. Custom VNet DNS ensures the AD integrated zones are reachable before the promotion wizard or install AD-DS domain controller runs. An Azure domain controller must resolve the existing AD-DS namespace over private connectivity. Azure-provided DNS cannot discover the forest's SRV records. Question 5 of 45. Your Azure workloads require resilient AD-DS authentication. A single Azure data center fault boundary must not cause authentication failure. Which deployment approach satisfies the requirement? Option A. Deploy at least 2 Azure-hosted domain controllers across separate availability zones or fault domains, and configure clients with multiple AD-DS DNS server addresses. Option B. Deploy 1 large Azure VM as a domain controller with premium SSD storage, and enable VM snapshot-based backup. Option C. Place a single domain controller VM in an availability set, and configure Azure DNS private resolver. Option D. Use 1 domain controller per Azure region with geo-redundant storage for sysvol. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is A. Deploy at least 2 Azure-hosted domain controllers across separate availability zones or fault domains, and configure clients with multiple AD-DS DNS server addresses. Resilience for ADDs comes from multiple replicating domain controllers placed across independent fault boundaries, availability zones, plus client-side DNS redundancy. A single VM or snapshot does not protect against DC failure or data center outage. ADDS availability comes from independent replicating controllers and redundant client DNS settings, not larger VM sizing, snapshots, or storage replication. Question 6 of 45. Azure workloads must authenticate against domain controllers hosted in Azure, while remaining available if one availability zone fails. Which 2 configuration actions satisfy both requirements? Option A. Map the Azure VNet address range to an existing or new ADDS site. Option B. Deploy a single large Azure VM as a domain controller and rely on Azure availability sets. Option C. Deploy at least 2 domain controllers across separate availability zones or fault domains. Option D. Configure the Azure Domain Controller VMs and all Azure workloads to use Azure-provided DNS only. Option E. Place all domain controllers in the same availability zone and use VM scale sets for redundancy. Lock in your answer. The correct answers are A and C. Option A. Map the Azure VNet address range to an existing or new ADDS site. Option C. Deploy at least 2 domain controllers across separate availability zones or fault domains. Site mapping ensures DC Locator returns local Azure DCs for clients. Multiple DCs across failure boundaries provide resilience when one zone is lost. Subnet to site mapping influences DC Locator preference, while multiple domain controllers across Azure failure boundaries provide authentication continuity during an infrastructure outage. Question 7 of 45. A branch technician without domain admin rights must install an RODC from installation media at a remote site. Which approach enables the technician to complete the installation? Option A. Grant the technician local administrator's membership on the branch member server and run RODC promotion. Option B. Pre-stage the RODC account, assign the delegated installer, and use that staged account during promotion. Option C. Add the technician to account operators and run RODC promotion against an unstaged server account. Option D. Pre-stage a writable domain controller account and grant the technician permission to join computers to the domain. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is B. Pre-stage the RODC account, assign the delegated installer, and use that staged account during promotion. Pre-staging the RODC account allows delegation of the install right to a non-domain admin principal, so the branch technician can promote without domain-wide credentials. Pre-staging is specifically the delegated RODC installation path. Local server rights, or broad account management roles, do not authorize domain controller promotion. Question 8 of 45. You need to promote a branch office server as an additional read-only domain controller in an existing domain. Which selection during promotion produces a read-only domain controller? Option A. Select Add a domain controller to an existing domain and accept all defaults. Option B. Select Add a new domain to an existing forest and choose the Read-Only option. Option C. Select the Read-Only Domain Controller (RODC) option during the AD-DS configuration wizard. Option D. Deploy the Read-Only Domain Controller by installing the AD-DS role with an RODC feature flag before promotion. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is C. Select the Read-Only Domain Controller (RODC) option during the AD-DS configuration wizard. The read-only behavior is explicitly selected in the AD-DS configuration wizard, or via the renderer applica parameter. Role installation alone does not determine writable versus read-only. Read-only status is selected during domain controller promotion through the RODC option, or writable replica parameter, not during AD-DS role installation. Question 9 of 45. After promoting a branch server, you must confirm it is operating as a read-only domain controller. Which verification method is authoritative? Option A. Run get a domain controller for the branch domain controller and review only its hostname and site properties. Option B. Run dcdiag/test:/advertising and verify that the server advertises as a domain controller. Option C. Confirm that the server object is located under the branch site in Active Directory Sites and Services. Option D. Run get a domain controller for the server and inspect the isReady property. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is D. Run get a domain controller for the server and inspect the isReadme property. The isRole attribute on the domain controller object in Active Directory Sites and Services, or via get AD domain controller-identity, select isReadable, definitively reports read-only state. Naming and site membership are conventions only. Verify RODC state from the domain controller objects is reading property. Naming, site placement, and normal service advertising cannot prove read-only behavior. Question 10 of 45. Branch users must be able to sign in during a WAN outage, yet privileged accounts must never have their passwords cached on the RODC. Which configuration meets the requirement? Option A. Configure the RODC password replication policy to allow the branch users group and deny privileged groups. Optionally, pre-populate allowed accounts. Option B. Add all branch users to the allowed RODC password replication group and leave the denied group empty. Option C. Enable universal group caching on the RODC and block privileged accounts via security filtering. Option D. Configure the RODC to replicate only from a specific writable DC and rely on that DC for all authentication. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is A. Configure the RODC password replication policy to allow the branch users group and deny privileged groups. Optionally, pre-populate allowed accounts. The RODC password replication policy, PRP, explicitly lists allowed and denied groups. Allowed branch users can cache credentials for offline logon. Denied privileged groups never cache. Pre-population is optional for immediate use. Password replication policy controls which secrets an RODC may cache. Non-cached users can still authenticate whenever the branch reaches a writable controller. Question 11 of 45. A branch support group must be able to perform local administrative tasks on one specific RODC without receiving domain-wide privileges. Which configuration meets the requirement while following least privilege principles? Option A. Add the branch support group to the domain admins group and restrict logons with a logon hours GPO. Option B. Configure the delegated administrator on the RODC account during pre-staging or promotion and assign the branch support group. Option C. Create a custom universal group with full control over the RODC computer object in Active Directory users and computers. Option D. Add the group to the enterprise admins group and then remove it after the RODC is installed. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is B. Configure the delegated administrator on the RODC account during pre-staging or promotion and assign the branch support group. RODC administrator role separation assigns a user or group local administrative capability on that specific RODC without granting domain-wide administrative rights. RODC administrator role separation grants local control of one read-only controller without conferring domain admins or enterprise admins privileges. Question 12 of 45. A security review of a branch RODC must identify which account passwords are already cached and ensure privileged accounts remain excluded from future caching. Which two actions should you perform? Choose two. Option A. Run repadmin/show repl and review the RODC inbound replication partners. Option B. Query the RODC password replication policy usage for revealed accounts. Option C. Add the branch administrators to the allowed RODC password replication group. Option D. Verify privilege groups remain covered by the RODC password replication policy deny list. Option E. Enable universal group membership caching for the branch site. Lock in your answer. The correct answers are B and D. Option B. Query the RODC password replication policy usage for revealed accounts. Option D. Verify privilege groups remain covered by the RODC password replication policy deny list. The revealed accounts usage query reports whose credentials have already been cached on the RODC. The deny side of the password replication policy prevents privileged account secrets from being cached in the future. Use revealed account usage to audit existing RODC cache exposure. Use the PRP deny list to prevent privileged secrets from entering that cache. Question 13 of 45. You need to extend the Active Directory schema to support a new application. Which FSMO role holder must be online and reachable before the schema extension can succeed? Option A, Domain Naming Master. Option B, RID Master FSMO role. Option C, Schema Master. Option D, Infrastructure Master FSMO role. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is C, Schema Master. Schema modifications are performed against the Schema Master FSMO role. The Schema Master is the only domain controller that accepts and replicates schema changes forest-wide. Schema changes are accepted through the forest-wide Schema Master. The Domain Naming Master controls domain and application partition additions instead. Question 14 of 45. The current RID master is healthy, but you will permanently decommission it during a planned domain controller replacement. What should you do with the RID master role? Option A. Seize the RID master role on the replacement domain controller before beginning the planned decommission. Option B. Demote the current owner first and wait for normal replication to assign the role automatically. Option C. Leave the role on the current owner and create additional RID pools on the replacement controller. Option D. Transfer the RID master role to the replacement domain controller before demoting the current owner. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is D. Transfer the RID master role to the replacement domain controller before demoting the current owner. Because the current owner is healthy, transfer the RID master role and verify the new holder before demotion. Seizure is the recovery path for an unavailable, unrecoverable owner. A healthy FSMO owner supports a clean transfer. Seizure is reserved for an unavailable owner that will not return without remediation. Question 15 of 45. In a multi-domain forest, not every domain controller is a global catalog server. Where should you place the infrastructure master to avoid stale cross-domain object references? Option A. On a domain controller that is not a global catalog server, unless every DC in the domain is a GC. Option B. On the forest root domain controller that holds the schema master role. Option C. On any global catalog server in the domain for fastest lookup performance. Option D. On the same server as the RID master to keep RID allocation and reference updates together. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is A. On a domain controller that is not a global catalog server, unless every DC in the domain is a GC. The infrastructure master must run on a non-GC domain controller when the domain contains a mix of GC and non-GC servers. If every DC is a GC, the placement restriction does not apply because phantom updates are unnecessary. Infrastructure master placement matters when global catalog coverage is mixed. If every controller is a GC, the traditional placement conflict disappears. Question 16 of 45. Contoso and Fabricam forests require one-way resource access from Contoso users to a specific file server in Fabricam. No reverse authentication or broad exposure to other Fabricam resources is allowed. Which configuration meets the requirement? Option A. Create a two-way forest trust between Contoso and Fabricam and enable selective authentication on the Contoso side. Option B. Create a one-way forest trust where Fabricam trusts Contoso, enable selective authentication, and grant allowed to authenticate on the target server. Option C. Create a one-way external trust from Contoso to Fabricam and add Contoso users directly to a local group on the Fabricam server. Option D. Create a shortcut trust between the resource domains and configure SID filtering to restrict reverse access. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is B. Create a one-way forest trust where Fabricam trusts Contoso, enable selective authentication, and grant allowed to authenticate on the target server. A one-way forest trust with the resource forest, Fabricam, as the trusting side, combined with selective authentication and the allowed to authenticate permission on the specific server, grants scoped access without permitting reverse authentication or forest-wide exposure. One-way forest trust direction from the resource forest, plus selective authentication, plus allowed to authenticate permission scopes cross-forest access without reverse flow. Question 17 of 45. Users in an account forest must access servers in a resource forest through a one-way trust. Which forest is the trusting forest, and what must be validated to confirm the trust path? Option A. The account forest is trusting. Validate that the resource forest appears in the account forest's trust list and that name suffix routing is enabled. Option B. Both forests are trusting. Validate bidirectional replication and that SID filtering is disabled on both sides. Option C. The resource forest is trusting. Validate the trust direction and that ADDS connectivity exists between the forest root domains. Option D. The account forest is trusting. Validate that the resource forest has an inbound trust and that UPN suffixes are routed. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is C. The resource forest is trusting. Validate the trust direction and that ADD's connectivity exists between the forest root domains. In a one-way trust, the resource forest trusts the account forest, meaning authentication flows from account to resource. The trust direction and forest root connectivity must both be confirmed for the path to function. Resource forest is the trusting side in a one-way trust. Confirm direction plus forest root ADDS connectivity for a valid authentication path. Question 18 of 45. Users in child domains of two separate forests need transitive access, but only an external trust exists between the two forest root domains. Which change enables the required transitive access? Option A. Extend the existing external trust to include the child domains explicitly and enable SID filtering on the child domain side. Option B. Create additional external trusts directly between each pair of child domains and configure name suffix routing. Option C. Keep the external trust and enable transitive forest-wide authentication on the root domains only. Option D. Replace the external trust with a forest trust and verify name suffix routing for the required child domain namespaces. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is D. Replace the external trust with a forest trust and verify name suffix routing for the required child domain namespaces. External trusts are non-transitive and limited to the explicitly named domains. Replacing them with a forest trust provides transitive scope across the entire forest, including child domains, when name suffix routing is configured. External trusts stop at named domains and lack transitivity. Forest trusts supply transitive scope plus name suffix routing for child domains across forests. Question 19 of 45. A resource forest must accept users from two separate account forests while preventing broad authentication to every server in the resource forest. Which two configurations should you implement? Choose two. Option A. Create two-way forest trusts from the resource forest to each account forest. Option B. Enable forest-wide authentication on the resource forest side of each trust. Option C. Create one-way forest trusts where the resource forest trusts each account forest. Option D. Disable selective authentication on the resource forest trusts. Option E. Enable selective authentication and grant allowed to authenticate only on the required resource tier servers. Lock in your answer. The correct answers are C and E. Option C. Create one-way forest trusts, where the resource forest trusts each account forest. Option E. Enable selective authentication and grant allowed to authenticate only on the required resource tier servers. One-way trust with the resource forest as the trusting side, combined with selective authentication and targeted allowed to authenticate permissions, Limit access to specific servers without granting forest-wide rights from either account forest. Pair resource-side one-way forest trusts with selective authentication plus allowed to authenticate on the target tier to restrict access without forest-wide exposure. Question 20 of 45. Clients in a new branch office that contains a local domain controller continue to authenticate against a distant hub site domain controller. Which configuration error is the most likely cause? Option A. The branch office IP subnet object is missing or mapped to the wrong Active Directory site. Option B. The local domain controller was promoted without specifying the correct site during installation. Option C. Site link cost between the branch and hub was left at the default value of 100. Option D. The branch domain controller is not listed as a global catalog server. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is A. The branch office IP subnet object is missing or mapped to the wrong Active Directory site. The DC locator process selects a domain controller based on subnet to site mapping. Without a correct subnet object in the branch site, clients fall back to a hub site domain controller, regardless of local DC presence. Subnet to site mapping controls DC locator preference. Missing or incorrect mapping causes clients to ignore a local domain controller. Question 21 of 45. Replication between two ADDS sites occurs too frequently during business hours and is saturating the WAN link. The site link already has a cost value configured. Which two actions should you take to reduce replication frequency without creating an alternate path? Option A. Restrict the site link schedule to approved off-peak windows only. Option B. Increase the site link cost to force replication over a different path. Option C. Lower the replication interval on the site link to slow traffic. Option D. Increase the replication interval value on the site link. Option E. Disable the Bridge All Site Links option in the forest. Lock in your answer. The correct answers are A and D. Option A. Restrict the site link schedule to approved off-peak windows only. Option D. Increase the replication interval value on the site link. Schedule restricts when replication may occur. Increasing the interval reduces how often replication attempts happen inside the open schedule windows. Cost only influences path selection when multiple links exist. Site link schedule controls the time windows replication may occur, while the replication interval governs frequency inside those open windows. Question 22 of 45. 3 routed sites use separate site links, but automatic transitive bridging is disabled. Site A must replicate with Site C through Site B. What must be configured to enable the required path? Option A. Move the ISTG role to a domain controller in Site B. Option B. Create an explicit site link bridge that includes the Site A through B and Site B through C links. Option C. Disable the KCC on all domain controllers in the 3 sites. Option D. Add a manual connection object from Site A to Site C. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is B. Create an explicit site link bridge that includes the Site A to B and Site B to C links. When Bridge All Site Links is disabled, the KCC requires an explicit site link bridge to generate a transitive replication path between the permitted links. When automatic bridging is disabled, an explicit site link bridge must be created so the KCC can generate the required transitive replication path. Question 23 of 45. The preferred bridgehead server in a site is overloaded. You need a different domain controller to become the bridgehead without disabling the KCC or moving the ISTG role. What should you configure? Option A. Disable the KCC on the current preferred bridgehead server. Option B. Transfer the ISTG role to another domain controller in the site. Option C. Configure a different preferred bridgehead server for the transport in Active Directory sites and services. Option D. Create a new site link with lower cost to the remote site. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is C. Configure a different preferred bridgehead server for the transport in Active Directory sites and services. Preferred bridgehead server settings constrain KCC selection for that transport, while leaving automatic topology generation enabled. Preferred bridgehead configuration constrains KCC selection for a specific transport, while automatic topology generation and the site's ISTG role remain intact. Question 24 of 45. repadmin/showrepl reports error 1722. The RPC server is unavailable between two domain controllers immediately after a firewall rule change. What is the first action you should take? Option A. Run repadmin/syncall/adp from the affected domain controller. Option B. Change the intersite transport schedule and site link cost for the replication path. Option C. Run repadmin/remove injuring objects against the destination naming context. Option D. Validate DNS resolution in the AD-DS RPC firewall path between the domain controllers. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is D. Validate DNS resolution and the AD-DS RPC firewall path between the domain controllers. Error 1722 indicates a transport reachability problem. DNS resolution and the RPC port path must be confirmed before any topology or database repair actions. Error 1722 signals a transport reachability problem. Prove name resolution and RPC connectivity before any topology or database actions. Question 25 of 45. A domain controller that was offline longer than the tombstone lifetime returns an replication diagnostics report lingering objects under strict replication consistency. Which two actions must be performed before normal inbound replication can resume? Option A. Disable strict replication consistency on the returning domain controller. Option B. Identify an authoritative healthy replication partner for the affected naming context. Option C. Run repadmin/syncall from the returning domain controller to resume inbound replication. Option D. Increase the forest tombstone lifetime and restart Active Directory domain services. Option E. Remove lingering objects from the returning domain controller against the authoritative partner. Lock in your answer. The correct answers are B and E. Option B. Identify an authoritative, healthy replication partner for the affected naming context. Option E. Remove lingering objects from the returning domain controller against the authoritative partner. Under strict consistency, a tombstone lifetime return requires selection of an authoritative healthy partner and explicit removal of lingering objects before inbound replication is permitted. A tombstone lifetime return under strict consistency requires an authoritative healthy partner plus explicit lingering object removal before normal replication resumes. Question 26 of 45. A domain controller running in a virtual machine is restored from an unsupported snapshot. Event 2095 appears repeatedly in the directory service event log on multiple domain controllers. What is the correct recovery action? Option A. Isolate the affected domain controller, force demotion if needed, and re-promote it from a healthy replication partner. Option B. Run repadmin/syncall/A/E on the affected domain controller to force inbound replication from partners. Option C. Reset the invocation ID via registry edit on the affected domain controller and resume replication. Option D. Perform authoritative restore of the sysvol and NTDS database on the affected domain controller. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is A. Isolate the affected domain controller, force demotion if needed, and re-promote it from a healthy replication partner. Event 2095 signals USN rollback caused by an unsupported VM snapshot restore. The database lineage is no longer trustworthy. The only safe action is to isolate the DC and rebuild it from healthy partners via demotion-repromotion. Event 2095 indicates USN rollback from an unsupported snapshot. Isolate the affected controller and rebuild its directory database from healthy replication partners. Question 27 of 45. After promoting a new domain controller, the sysvol and net logon shares are missing, and DFSR shows it is stuck in initial synchronization. What is the correct next step? Option A. Run dfsrmig/set global state 3 to force DFSR migration to the final state. Option B. Verify upstream AD-DS replication and DFSR initial sync events. Correct the partner or replication dependency. Option C. Use ntfrsutil to force FRS replication and then migrate sysvol to DFSR. Option D. Manually create the sysvol and net logon shares and grant the required NTFS permissions. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is B. Verify upstream AD-DS replication and DFSR initial sync events. Correct the partner or replication dependency. Missing sysvol on a DFSR domain indicates the new DC has not completed initial sync because of upstream AD-DS configuration replication issues. Correct the replication dependency first. Legacy FRS commands are not applicable. Missing sysvol after promotion on DFSR domain requires healthy upstream AD-DS replication before initial sync can finish. Question 28 of 45. Your organization needs a repeatable process to onboard new employees who share the same department, group memberships, and home folder path conventions. What is the recommended approach? Option A. Copy an existing live user account for each new hire and then modify the unique attributes. Option B. Create each new user from scratch and manually assign every group membership and folder permission. Option C. Maintain a disabled template account or use scripted provisioning that copies reusable attributes and generates unique identities. Option D. Add new users directly to resource ACLs and assign permissions individually during onboarding. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is C. Maintain a disabled template account or use scripted provisioning that copies reusable attributes and generates unique identities. A disabled template account or automated provisioning script carries the common attributes, department, groups, home folder conventions, while ensuring every user receives a unique enabled identity, password, and credential lifecycle. Use a disabled template or scripted provisioning to carry reusable attributes while generating unique enabled identities for each user. Question 29 of 45. You must allow a help desk team to create and reset passwords for users in a specific OU without granting them domain-wide administrative rights. Which delegation method satisfies the requirement? Option A. Add the help desk group to account operators and restrict its interactive logon through group policy. Option B. Delegate full control on the domain root to a universal help desk group. Option C. Grant the help desk group create all child objects and delete all child objects on the target OU. Option D. Use the delegation of control wizard on the target OU and delegate user creation/management plus password reset tasks. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is D. Use the delegation of control wizard on the target OU and delegate user creation, management plus password reset tasks. The delegation of control wizard can scope permissions to one OU and assign both the user account management task and the password reset task. This provides the requested actions without domain-wide administrative membership. OU delegation is task-specific. User object creation rights and the password reset extended right must both be assigned at the target OU. Question 30 of 45. You need to grant a file share permission to a department without placing any user accounts directly on the ACL. Which group nesting strategy implements AGDLP correctly? Option A. Place user accounts in global role groups. Nest those global groups into a domain local resource group, and grant the permission to the domain local group. Option B. Place user accounts directly into a domain local group, and grant the permission to that group. Option C. Create universal groups for roles. Nest them into global groups, and assign the universal groups to the ACL. Option D. Create a global resource group. Add users to it, and grant the global group the permission on the share. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is A. Place user accounts in global role groups. Nest those global groups into a domain local resource group, and grant the permission to the domain local group. AGDLP places accounts in global groups, role, nests those into domain local groups, resources, and assigns permissions only to the domain local group. This keeps the ACL stable and follows Microsoft best practice. AGDLP, accounts in global role groups, global groups nested in domain local resource group, permission granted only to the domain local group. Question 31 of 45. Users from several domains in one forest need common access to an enterprise application resource group. Which nesting strategy satisfies the requirement with least privilege? Option A. Place all users directly into the resource domain local group. Option B. Nest account domain global groups into a universal role group, then into the resource domain local group. Option C. Create one global group containing users from every domain and assign it directly to the ACL. Option D. Use a single universal group for all accounts and grant it permissions on the resource. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is B. Nest account domain global groups into a universal role group, then into the resource domain local group. AGDLP recommends nesting account domain global groups into a universal group for forest-wide role aggregation, then placing that universal group into the resource domain local group that holds the actual permissions. Within one forest, universal groups aggregate role groups from multiple domains, while the resource domain local group remains the stable ACL permission boundary. Question 32 of 45. A trusted external forest supplies users who need access to one file service in the resource forest. What is the recommended permission model? Option A. Create duplicate user accounts in the resource forest and assign permissions directly. Option B. Place the foreign security principles directly onto every ACL that requires access. Option C. Represent the trusted identities through the trust and place their group or foreign security principle into a resource domain local group assigned to the ACL. Option D. Grant permissions to the trusted forest global groups on the resource forest ACLs. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is C. Represent the trusted identities through the trust and place their group or foreign security principle into a resource domain local group assigned to the ACL. Foreign security principles from the trusted forest are placed inside a resource forest domain local group. That group receives the ACL permissions, keeping the permission boundary stable and auditable. Across a forest trust, place foreign identities inside a resource domain local group, so resource ACLs remain stable, local, and auditable. Question 33 of 45. A branch site cannot host a global catalog server, but must support subsequent logons that rely on universal group membership when the WAN is unavailable. Which site configuration meets the requirement? Option A. Convert the required universal groups to global groups before branch users sign in. Option B. Configure branch clients to use cached interactive logon without contacting a domain controller. Option C. Force branch clients to contact a writable domain controller in the hub for every logon. Option D. Enable universal group membership caching for the branch site and complete an initial logon while a global catalog is reachable. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is D. Enable universal group membership caching for the branch site and complete an initial logon while a global catalog is reachable. Universal group membership caching is enabled for the site. After a successful logon, while a global catalog is reachable, a local domain controller caches the user's universal memberships for later branch logons. Universal group membership caching supports later site logons without a local global catalog, but the first cache population requires reachable GC data. Question 34 of 45. Users are migrated from a source forest to a target forest. Existing ACLs in the target reference the old SIDs. What is the correct use of SID history? Option A. Use SID history as a controlled migration bridge. Validate the trust's migration controls, remediate ACLs, and remove old SIDs afterward. Option B. Copy the source user SIDs permanently into the target accounts so permissions never need updating. Option C. Disable SID filtering on all trusts, so migrated users inherit every previous permission automatically. Option D. Recreate every ACL entry with the new user SIDs before migration completes. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is A. Use SID history as a controlled migration bridge, validate the trust migration controls, remediate ACLs, and remove old SIDs afterward. SID history can preserve access to resources that still reference source forest SIDs during a staged migration. It should be controlled through the migration trust, then retired after ACLs and group assignments use target identities. SID history is a temporary migration bridge for old ACLs. Validate trust controls, migrate permissions to target identities, and then remove historical SIDs. Question 35 of 45. A clustered SQL Server service runs on multiple hosts in the domain and must rotate its password automatically. Which account type meets the requirement? Option A. A standard domain user account with a long, complex password changed manually every 90 days. Option B. A group managed service account, GMSA, after confirming application support and forest KDS root key existence. Option C. A standalone managed service account, SMSA, bound to a single cluster node. Option D. A computer account used as a service principal with SPN registration. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is B. A group managed service account, GMSA, after confirming application support and forest KDS root key existence. GMSAs provide automatic password management and support for multiple authorized hosts when the workload is compatible and the forest has a KDS root key. A compatible multi-host service needing automatic password rotation points to GMSA. Verify both KDS preparation and the application's managed account support. Question 36 of 45. A Windows Server member server fails to retrieve the managed password for a group managed service account, GMSA, used by an IIS application pool. Which two conditions must be verified to resolve the retrieval failure? Option A. Add the GMSA to domain admins so every member server can request its password. Option B. Configure the member server as a workgroup host and install the GMSA locally. Option C. Verify that a KDS root key exists in the Active Directory forest. Option D. Authorize the member server computer account or host group to retrieve the GMSA password. Option E. Grant the member server computer account read all properties on the OU that contains the GMSA. Lock in your answer. The correct answers are C and D. Option C. Verify that a KDS root key exists in the Active Directory forest. Option D. Authorize the member server computer account or host group to retrieve the GMSA password. GMSA password generation requires a KDS root key in the forest. Retrieval is authorized only when the host principal, computer account or group is granted the specific retrieve password extended right on the GMSA. GMSA retrieval requires a forest KDS root key for password generation and explicit authorization for each host or approved host group. Question 37 of 45. A single server IIS application pool will never move or cluster, and the forest does not have a KDS root key. Which managed service account meets the requirement with the least new infrastructure? Option A. Create a standard user account and store its password in a secure vault. Option B. Use a group managed service account, GMSA, and authorize only the single server. Option C. Use a standalone managed service account, SMSA, on the single host. Option D. Use a domain user account with a 120-day password rotation policy. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is C. Use a standalone managed service account, SMSA, on the single host. A standalone MSA is designed for a single host and does not require a KDS root key or host authorization list, making it the simplest choice when the workload is confirmed to remain on one server. Host count and forest preparation decide the account. A confirmed single host can use SMSA when no KDS root key exists. Question 38 of 45. A GPO linked to an OU contains a setting that conflicts with a domain-level GPO. Block inheritance is enabled on the OU, yet the domain setting still applies to some objects. What explains this behavior? Option A. Block inheritance prevents all inherited settings, regardless of link order or enforced flags. Option B. The conflicting domain GPO is linked higher in the LSDOU order, and therefore cannot be blocked. Option C. Security filtering on the domain GPO excludes the affected computer accounts. Option D. The domain GPO link is marked enforced, which survives block inheritance at the OU. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is D. The domain GPO link is marked enforced, which survives block inheritance at the OU. Enforced GPO links ignore block inheritance. The final effective setting still depends on link order, security filtering, and WMI filters after inheritance rules are applied. An enforced link survives block inheritance, but the target must still be in scope and pass security and WMI filtering. Question 39 of 45. A GPO is already linked to the domain controller's OU. It must apply only to domain controllers running Windows Server 2022 in a mixed version environment. Which additional filtering mechanism targets the operating system requirement? Option A. Attach a WMI filter that selects Win32_ operating system version 10.0.20348 and product type 2. Option B. Grant apply group policy only to the domain controller's security group. Option C. Add operating system item level targeting to a group policy preferences item. Option D. Enable block inheritance on the domain controller's OU. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is A. Attach a WMI filter that selects Win32_ operating system version 10.0.20348 and product type 2. Because the OU link already establishes domain controller scope, a WMI filter can evaluate Win32_ operating system properties to select Windows Server 2022 domain controllers only. Use WMI to test operating system properties after the OU link establishes domain controller scope. Security filtering answers principal scope, not OS version. Question 40 of 45. User settings from a terminal server OU conflict with user settings inherited from the user's home OU. Which loopback processing mode ensures that only the computer location GPO list supplies the final user configuration? Option A. Loopback merge mode combines both lists with user location settings processed last. Option B. Loopback replace mode discards the normal user location GPO list entirely. Option C. Loopback merge mode discards computer location user settings after processing. Option D. No loopback mode. Rely on security filtering and enforced links instead. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is B. Loopback replace mode discards the normal user location GPO list entirely. Loopback replace mode builds the user settings list exclusively from GPOs linked to the computer location, completely ignoring the normal user location list. Merge appends computer location user settings after the normal list. Loopback replace discards the normal user location GPO list. Merge combines both lists and processes computer location user settings later. Question 41 of 45. A computer resides in a nested OU structure. GPOs are linked at the site, domain, and OU levels. One domain-linked GPO is enforced, an OU-linked GPO has block inheritance enabled, and security filtering plus a WMI filter further restricts scope. Which statement correctly describes the resultant set of policy that will apply? Option A. The enforced domain GPO always overrides every OU-linked setting, regardless of block inheritance or filters. Option B. Block inheritance at the OU prevents all inherited GPOs, so only the local OU GPO applies after WMI evaluation. Option C. LSD-OU order is evaluated first. Enforced GPOs win over block inheritance, but a GPO must still pass security and WMI filtering to apply. Option D. Security filtering takes precedence over enforcement and block inheritance. Only GPOs with matching security groups apply. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is C. LSD-OU order is evaluated first. Enforced GPOs win over block inheritance, but a GPO must still pass security and WMI filtering to apply. Group policy processing follows LSD-OU precedence. Enforced, no override GPOs win against block inheritance. However, the GPO must still be in scope via security filtering, read plus apply group policy permissions, and pass any WMI filter before its settings are applied to the target. LSD-OU establishes processing order. Enforced survives block inheritance, and security plus WMI filters still determine whether each GPO applies. Question 42 of 45. A server in the correct OU does not receive settings from its linked GPO. The GP result/H report shows the GPO under denied security. What is the most accurate next troubleshooting step? Option A. Run GP update/force for the linked GPO and inspect the group policy operational log for a new processing cycle. Option B. Move the GPO link higher in LSD-OU processing or link it at the domain. Option C. Delete and recreate the GPO link, then force ADDS replication. Option D. Inspect the GPO ACL for the computer's read and apply group policy permissions and any explicit deny entry. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is D. Inspect the GPO ACL for the computer's read and apply group policy permissions and any explicit deny entry. Denied security means the target lacks read or apply group policy permission, or an explicit deny applies. Inspect and correct the GPO security descriptor before changing links or replication. Denied security in GP result points directly to the GPO ACL. Verify read and apply group policy before changing links or replication. Question 43 of 45. You need to map a drive letter only for members of a specific security group on client computers. The mapping should create the drive if absent and update the path if it already exists. Which group policy preferences configuration satisfies the requirement? Option A. Create a drive maps preference item, set action to update, and configure item level targeting to the required security group. Option B. link an administrative template policy that sets the drive mapping under user configuration and apply a security group filter. Option C. Use a logon script mapped via group policy that checks group membership with net use commands. Option D. Configure a drive maps preference with action create and apply the GPO only to the security group via GPO security filtering. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is A. Create a drive maps preference item, set action to update, and configure item level targeting to the required security group. Group policy preferences drive maps support the update action to create or modify an existing mapping. Item level targeting evaluates at runtime and is the preferred method to scope the preference to a security group without affecting GPO applicability for other settings. For refreshable group-targeted drive mappings, update maintains the mapping, while item level targeting selects recipients without filtering the entire GPO. Question 44 of 45. Using group policy preferences, deploy a one-time maintenance task to a targeted server group. It must run exactly once and store no reusable password in sysvol. Which configuration meets the requirements? Option A. Create a recurring scheduled task preference that runs with a stored domain service account password. Option B. Create a computer-side immediate task running as system, add item level targeting, and select apply once and do not reapply. Option C. Create a scheduled task preference with an @startup trigger and the update action on every refresh. Option D. Create an immediate task with alternate user credentials and leave apply once and do not reapply disabled. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is B. Create a computer-side immediate task running as system, add item level targeting, and select apply once and do not reapply. A computer-side immediate task can run as system without a stored password. Item level targeting selects the servers, while apply once and do not reapply enforces the one-time requirement. Use a system immediate task with item level targeting and apply once. Recurring tasks or stored alternate credentials violate the stated constraints. Question 45 of 45. A registry preference must remain corrected while a server has a role, disappear when the role is removed, and avoid deleting and recreating the value on every refresh. Which configuration meets the requirements? Option A. Use a group policy preferences registry item with action create, item level targeting, and apply once and do not reapply. Option B. Use replace with item level targeting and remove the item when it no longer applies. Option C. Use update with item level targeting and remove the item when it no longer applies. Option D. Use delete with item level targeting that matches servers where the role is installed. Lock in your answer. The correct answer is C. Use update with item level targeting and remove the item when it no longer applies. Update creates or corrects the named value without replacing it on every refresh. Item level targeting scopes the role, and remove this item when it is no longer applied cleans up after the role disappears. Update maintains a registry value without recreating it. Remove when no longer applied automatically cleans stale state when item level targeting becomes false. You finished the ADDS deep dive. Sort any misses into 5 decision patterns: controller placement, read-only security, topology and replication, identity scope, or group policy processing. Replaying only the patterns you missed will turn this long practice run into a precise remediation plan. Thanks for practicing with WebLizard's Cert Lab. Keep this ADDS decision model. Review the explanations behind your misses, and continue with the hybrid Windows Server Management Deep Dive when you are ready.